Okay, this is a review video on sharing and formatting Google Documents. First, make sure you're within Google Drive, and to get there, the 3x3 dots, remember it's right there, or you can type in drive.google.com once you're logged into your Google account. Now, before creating a document, you want to make sure you know where you're located, because if you're located within a folder, you might not be able to find your work unless you are planning it that way. So please be very aware of where the red highlight is on your left sidebar. So I'm going to go to Create, and I'm going to select a document. Now, if I am typing a document for Language Arts, I want to make sure first that the title of my document is the title of the assignment. So always check with your teacher so you know what that's called. Now I'm going to title this Video Test Document. Please make sure you spell and capitalize correctly. Okay, now, one thing you need to be aware of is this white tool right here. And I know it doesn't look very white now, but it is. This is what's called the ruler. You have approximately 6.5 inches of page to type on. Your page is 7.5 to roughly 8 inches. Now, you'll notice that these arrows cut off some pages. I can't get my cursor over here. That's called the margin. This is the left margin. This over here is the right margin. Those can be adjusted. We don't need to mess with those generally because they will cause our paper to go radically unformatted. And one thing you want to know is that when you print, or if you print in Google, if you incorrectly formatted your paper, it will not print very neatly, and that can be quite frustrating. So, how do I get my cursor to the right side of the page? I don't use spacebar, I don't use tab. What instead I use is my alignment buttons. Now, if you don't see these, look under More. They will be there. Okay? So, center is great to use for a title, if I have to put a title on something. Right align is great for a name block, which is what I'm going to do. So I type in my name. Remember, one space after a period. Now I hit enter, and my cursor will go directly one line before. Today's date is September 10th, 2014. Okay, so you get the point. Now, how do I get my cursor back across? I use the alignment button one more time, and you see it moves it in. That's going to be very, very important. Okay. Now, the default for font style, this is font style, is Arial, and the size is 11. Now, I want to change my name block to a different font and a different size. I have to highlight the text because I've already written it. Now, I highlight it, and I'm going to change it to Times New Roman, and I'm going to change it to 12. That's standard. Okay? Now, I put my cursor back down here, and look, it's Arial again. Huh. Well, I don't have to type this time and highlight. I can instead change it right now to Times and 12, so it's the same size, and I can type in my words. Okay? Again, one space after a sentence or after a punctuation mark. So a few things we'll realize. Now I've got a couple sentences here, and this looks kind of cluttered, so I want to put another gap in there. Generally a one-line gap looks great. Now the other thing is that when teachers ask you to do work in Google, they generally want you to double space it. Okay? Now that may not always be the rule, but that's a good general rule of thumb. How do I double space? Alright, well, I don't hit enter at the end of the line. That will mess us up. What I do instead is I highlight it, highlight my text, and I go to Format, Line Spacing, and I'll go down to Double. And you can see that's what it changes. I can also, if I wanted to, change it to 1.5. And you can see it's a little narrower. This is really helpful for teachers to comment on your paper. Okay? Alright, so those are some general rules of thumb with highlighting, or with, formatting your paper. Don't forget, paragraph should always be indented, and don't forget you have your undo and redo buttons in case something happens, we make a goof. Okay, those are quite helpful tools. You also have your bold, italic, and underline. So if you are trying to stress emphasis, you generally will bold it, or italicize it, or underline it. Generally not all three at one time though, so keep that in mind. Okay? Alright, so the last thing I want to talk to you about is sharing. And sharing is quite important. It's the blue share button. General rule of thumb, you're going to share this with your teacher. That's the first step. Okay, so if I change that, I want to put in, I want to put in their name, so maybe this is Mrs. Dub. So I type in the first few letters and there she is.